Welcome everyone to this Sylva Ry's discussion on welfare state's capacity to support families with a child diagnosed with cancer. We are privileged to have experts here on stage. Two of them are experts by personal experience. Mostly welcome Annastiina Hedman, nursing lecturer, and Jacob Friis, who we will soon hear about your both experiences about how life changes and what kind of support you have received as parents, as a family. Some of you may know Jacob as a head coach of Finland's men's football team, Huuhkajat. Okay, but now you are here as a parent. Mostly welcome. Welcome also Research Director Riikka Leskelä from Nordic Healthcare Group. And Antti Karjalainen, you are the Director of Research and Development at Sylva ry, which supports families with children with cancer. My name is Riitta Väkeväinen. So let's start with some facts and numbers. In Finland, currently around 160 children under 16 years old are diagnosed with cancer every year. Children's cancer presents the family with a shock. First the fear and uncertainty, then all the treatments, which are often intensive and can last for 1 to 3 years. Usually at least one of the parents drop off from work to look after the child. Sometimes parents take turns. For single parents, the situation is more difficult, of course. Another burden is financial. From Sylva's research, we know that the drop in families' work-related income is on average over 5,000 euros per year. At the same time, life costs go up. Transportation between home and hospital, childcare for your other children while you are away from home, etc. They all come as extra. We know that in some families this has resulted in generating debt. So there is a lot at the same time the parents must deal with. Sylva ry knows something about that because they have just released a survey about families with a child diagnosed with cancer. We'll hear about that a bit later. But first, Annastiina, could you please tell us about your child and how has her illness affected your family?
Okay, thank you. My daughter Isela got sick in October 23. She had an ear infection and I ordered a doctor's appointment for her, and in that same doctor's appointment the doctor did basic exams and also pressed her stomach, and then the doctor felt something extra in her stomach. Right after that they sent us to the Turku University Hospital in Children's ER with more examinations and ultrasounds, and within a couple of hours with examinations it was clear that she has some kind of a big tumor in her kidney. It was very big. It was the size of an adult fist, and she was very little, so it was very, very big. And right after that, we stayed at the hospital. We stayed there 10 days with more examinations, MRI, blood tests, all sort of things, and it was diagnosed with Wilms tumor, form of children's kidney cancer. In the same time, we already started chemotherapy, and it lasts about a month of chemotherapy once a week, and then the tumor was downsized enough that Isela had a surgery. They removed the left kidney and the tumor and also a bit of the lymph nodes from the stomach because it was spread a little bit in there also. And when she was recovered of the surgery, the chemotherapy started again and lasted about 7 months. She also had 8 times of radiation therapy in the stomach area because of those lymph nodes. And it was we stayed mainly in home. The chemotherapy was once a week, and we did go 2 times a week in the hospital at first in blood test, and then a couple of days later we had that chemotherapy. But the other time we spent at home, and we were in infection isolation at home. She didn't go anywhere else except the hospital. Nobody could visit in our home, and of course she didn't go to the kindergarten, and we just stayed mainly at the house and in some outdoors and playgrounds when there were any other children around. Of course, it was a shock at first, and me and my spouse Harri, Isela's father, we both stayed in sick leave for a couple of weeks, and then I stayed home for the whole 11 months that took place that time, sickness time, and in first 2 months also Harri stayed at home. They had a temporary layoff in his company, so it was a blessing in a way that we could both stay at home at the beginning, because it was very rough time. But of course it affected our financial situation and everything in that point. But I think it was good that at first we could both stay at home. And after that he started working 80% working time, so he was working 4 days a week, so he could be with me and Isela in the hospital when was the day of the chemotherapy. So it was a good thing also like that. And yeah, the chemotherapy lasted in end of June, like I said, 7 months after the surgery. Then in August she was so well that she could started to visit in her old kindergarten, and in September 24 she continued as a whole day in the kindergarten, and I went back to the work after 11 months.
So awfully big changes just when you went to check the ear infection, and all this happened suddenly after that.
Yeah, I remember I was thinking that when we went in the night, it was in the evening was the doctor's appointment, and when we were night in the children's oncology ward, I was just thinking that 5 hours ago she had an ear infection, and now she has a kidney cancer. So it was quite a shock. Yeah,
I do understand. What about your experience, Jacob? Would you please tell us how your life changed?
Yeah, I think I can relate to a lot of what's been said here. I think to just a background story to my small story about my daughter. In the city where I live in Denmark, there is a hospital. In that hospital, there is a backyard. In that backyard of that hospital, the children's department is. And it's when you live in the city, you know, in that backyard, it's a hospital for the kids, and it's kids with cancer and stuff like that. So when I was younger, I actually avoided that area. It was natural for me to go, somewhere else, because it was, not a good combination with kids and cancer. So it was something that I turned my blind eye to that. And then it went like I got married. We have 3 kids. We were actually talking about getting 4th kid, but at more or less at the same time when we were talking about getting the 4th one. When you have 3 kids, they are always having some kind of cold or flu, And then my middle daughter, she was 4 years, almost 4 years at that time. It was in 2019. And then, you go to the doctor and the doctor says, yeah, you need to go home, she needs some rest. And then it really didn't get better. Looked in the back mirror. I was also at night comforting her when she, felt some pain in the legs. At that time, you were thinking she's growing, so it's natural to have pains in the leg. And then it really didn't, by coincidence. Again, we went to the doctor to get a check for the running nose. This cold have lasted for weeks now, but again, it's normal with 3 kids. And then there was luckily a doctor who said, coincidental, just on the way out of the door, that maybe we should just take a blood example, a blood test. And then they took the blood test, and her blood percentage was so low that if one of us had a blood percentage this low, we would faint. We would, be laying on the floor. And then, that's very serious. He said, you need to go to the hospital. So we went to the hospital. And we went to that backyard with that, department for the kids. But at that time, we didn't know that it was leukemia, which at the end it was. And I remember it very clearly, because it's just like in a movie. You're with the wife, the kids, and then the doctor, he comes in the room, and then he actually says to the nurse, can you please find a chair? And then
you know.
Yeah, why do we need a chair? And then he said that your kid had cancer, had leukemia. It's a kind of leukemia that is called AML, a very aggressive kind of leukemia. And then, it's a shock. You get a shock. And we had to travel 120 kilometers to another hospital because they were experts in that. So at the same night, we were driving in the car. And then the next day, the chemo started. So, or maybe even the same night, they started to inject her with the chemo. And then I think you can relate that you get a shock, and then that hospital, that department, it wasn't that bad because they were full of nice people and full of experts, and you feel very, comfortable actually, even it's, sorry the language, a shitty situation to be in. So you get the plan with the doctors, you get, a running plan, and this was a running plan of 5 treatments of chemo. With this amount of time in between, so okay, then you some kind of find some comfort, and you can come a bit down. Then in this case with my daughter, they after the first treatment, they said that this treatment there will be a big chance of a setback if we continue to make this kind of treatment. So that's a second shock. So you just came above the first shock, and then you get another shock, and you get totally confused, and what now? And then the plan was that she needed to go to Copenhagen to get a bone marrow transplantation, and then you are in a shock, and I didn't know what it was at that time. And then you find out what does it mean to get a bone marrow transplantation and be isolated for weeks. But then you get a plan, and then you move along, and then you come a bit down, and the treatment went well, and she started to. We actually a part of this story is that isolation, being away from other kids, being away from other people, it's very important with this kind of disease. This was in 2020, so the corona pandemic came. Yep. And I know it's hard to say because there were many people losing their jobs and losing a lot of money, but for us it came at the right time.
Yes,
because
exactly.
Nobody was infected those months. And then you follow the plan, you come down, and then in this case, our case is that when the treatment stopped, we got home, then she was suddenly having problems with the heart. She got severe heart problems, you know. So she was again put into hospital, intensive care, but this time not the cancer department, but the heart department. But luckily she coped with that and came back strong. And it was more just to tell that you get some shock during the way in this kind of treatment and in this. So that's the story of the disease and how it developed.
So there's a lot of things happening and a lot of things to figure out in your head.
I think that earlier we also talked about how, when I look back at it, I'm thinking, how the hell could we cope with that as a family? How could I be in that situation and still breathe and not, you know,
I think, it was surviving. You just survived for the whole time. You just survived, and now when I was thinking a time, so it was surviving, and now it's just starting to realize and going through all the emotions and thoughts that you had.
I think there was one nurse. She said that you put on a Superman costume when you're a parent for that period, because you know you can't sit in the corner and cry because there is a kid looking at you.
That's the only chance.
You don't have any option.
No,
to survive.
exactly. There's no options.
Exactly. Antti, Sylva has just published a survey of families. What are the greatest needs for support during the treatments?
We published a family barometer yesterday, and what we do is every few years we ask the families to respond to some questions so that we can understand how the needs and the treatments and everything else is changing. And it's very, very familiar from your stories. One of the very clearest findings that we had back in 2022 when we did our first proper survey is that the need for sort of discussion and kind of therapeutic support, if you like, amongst parents is very big, obviously, when you get the diagnosis, because just like you guys described, it's a shock. But actually, when the treatments end, the need is almost as big at that time. And we noticed in this recent survey that this hasn't gone anywhere. The other thing that a lot of parents report to us is that the need for peer support is great, because I think Jacob described quite well that, of course, with the COVID as well, but you must feel very isolated, and it's a very kind of unique experience as a parent, as opposed to, let's say, a normal trajectory that the child might have.
Riikka, Leena, how do you see, is the Finnish system able or willing to give its best support to these little patients and their families?
Well, from my viewpoint and how I understand the situation is that I think the children's cancer is treated only in the university hospitals, so it's only five hospitals in the country. They do an excellent job, medically and with the support. But then what happens after that? When you leave the hospital and you no longer have the regular contact and you're supposedly fine, that's when I think we have the gap. And luckily we have organizations like Sylva who then have a network and can provide support, but I think our public system fails at that point. So when you're no longer in the crisis mode, and the child hopefully is fine, then that's when the public system doesn't recognize that the parents and maybe the siblings also still need support.
Yes, I agree. I think the transition in Finland from university hospital back to your home, either city or the welfare county, that's quite a difficult one, because it's the children's hospital or the university hospital is very obviously geared towards supporting families, but then you are suddenly back in your hometown and it's a very different situation.
One example for that now, I know it's not Finland, this was Denmark. But the treatment, I mean, I'm so proud of living in a country like Denmark where the treatment can be so, good that I still have all my 3 kids. But the hard part is when we drop that Superman costume and it gets a everyday life. And in this treatment, it's not just the treatment, it's also the time afterwards. And I have one example is that my wife, she was really strong, and I was crying more than her, and when we had this Superman costume on. But afterwards we had to go to Copenhagen every week for a long period, and we had to fly there. And then one of the hardest knocks she got was when she was at some point talking in the phone with some from the social office that normally helped us with the plane tickets. And then there was one, she started to question, do you really need it, or do you do this? And then she broke down, because, so it's just one example that it goes on for a long period afterwards, and that support is just crucial for everybody. And it's just one light example, but there are probably many more.
But do you find that in Denmark, do you feel that you had almost enough support from the welfare system?
Yeah, I think overall, yes, very good support. Also with the sick leave my wife, she could get, I started working quite quickly, but she could, get fully support from the government in a long period. So that, it would be horrible to have a sick kid and then have to cope with financial problems. That would not be benefiting anybody. Support like psychology help afterwards. It's good in Denmark. I remember my wife, she came after a year afterwards. She asked me, I think we should go to the psychologist. And I asked her, are you leaving me or what? But she said, no, but I think we need to evaluate this because it's been hard for everybody. And then we got the support from the government, and we could actually go to get some help and talk it through, and for sure that helped a lot. So that's also a good support from the government.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
What about in Finland, Annastiina? Do you feel that you had enough support?
I think the support was very good in the hospital. Everyone was very professional. They made us feel safe, that they knew what they were doing. There were social workers and counselors who right away helped us with the forms and what kind of benefits, welfare benefits we could get, and what should we do with our workplaces and everything like that. And also during that time, I went to the psychiatric nurse for once every 3 weeks, and it was offered to everyone in our family, but I was the one who felt like I needed it, and I think it was very, very good. And also in the hospital there was a local organization, Sykera, and also a member of Sylva, who was already in the hospital having coffee with those persons with children with cancer who has survived, and they were there with us having coffee and talk about the organization and what kind of peer support we can get. I think that was an excellent timing also, because it helped us a lot, because we didn't go anywhere. So those organizations had some events that we could go, because everyone was in isolation and that kind of thing. So I think the support was really good. But also I think that, like you said, that the time right after, it was a hard time, because you don't feel that secure anymore, because there are no hospital walls, and so you have to manage your own way, and and that was also a place that the peer support was very, very important for us.
Antti.
Yeah, I think it's great to hear, because I think it sounds like both of you have had very, very good support, especially during the hospital period. And I think one of the things that I still find quite surprising is that a children's cancer is not just a medical problem, because it's quite a wide problem. It affects the siblings, the grandparents, and a larger group around you. So this is what we find time and time again in our survey, is that lots of parents want to make sure that the kind of community around the family and the close family also does okay.
Yeah, it was my middle daughter. She was 6, so I had at that time 1 year boy. I didn't see him for the first year, but we were lucky that we had parents-in-law helping and staying very close. But I was very much aware on the big sister, because I'm also educated as a teacher, and I've been in the area with handicapped children. And when I was a teacher in that area, we saw not only handicapped children, we saw handicapped families, we saw handicapped siblings, because they were, left aside or put aside because it was all about the sick kid. And this was even not, cancer, it was a long life situation. So I was very much, or we were very much aware that we needed to put some attention to the big sister when it was going on. So that's also important. And she also got some help in Denmark around the hospitals. Maybe it's the same here in Finland. There are these family houses. So when you are put in a hospital, the family can stay just next door. And we were lucky to stay with the parents-in-law, and everybody, the sisters, could stay very close. So we could be still one unit, even we were kind of ripped apart. So
that's very important.
Yeah.
Riikka, you said that the public system fails. So what do you think that should be done, so that the welfare system didn't fail on these people?
Well, I think it should be not left to the parents or the kids to ask for help at that point. It should be offered either as an extension from the hospital, or then from the local community, be it then the healthcare center or something. But it should not be left to the parents to realize that they need help and then to try to figure out where to find it. And of course, Sylva is again doing a great job offering both support but also information. But still, it shouldn't be left to entirely to these NGO organizations.
Yeah, that's a really, really important point that Riikka is raising, because what is currently being debated in Europe very widely amongst the circles of children of cancer is there's a term called psycho-oncology. So that kind of discipline where you have trained psychologists who also understand the children's cancer issues. And they have a very systematic way, and we call that psychosocial standards for care, of making sure that the family gets to ask a number of times about their situation in terms of their mental health, how they're doing financially, how is the child doing in terms of preparing them for different operations, things like that. And this is really important, that we have a system, just like we have a fantastic medical system here. I mean, the protocol is beautiful. I mean, and just like Jacob, you described that, okay, there was a setback, but there was already a new idea going on. Okay, we need to do this. So the medical science is super advanced with this, and that's fantastic. And I think we need to have a care system that is up to the same level, and that's what we call the psychosocial standards of care.
Well, how is the national cancer strategy contributing to this, to the support of families? Riikka or Antti?
Sure. The Finland has just recently accepted, or it has been published, the first national cancer strategy. And luckily, the children's and young people's cancers are reflected there. I think there could be a little bit more work on that plan, especially on the psychosocial support side, because I think we're going to face a situation with lots of adult cancers as well, is that we can make people better. There will be late effects, and there will be things that will follow up from the heavy treatments or the disease itself. But still, we need to make sure that people can live a really good and full life after all these treatments and experiences, and that means mental health as well. But luckily, Riikka and I were involved in the cancer strategy, so we could put some input from the children's point of view into that paper.
Yeah, and I think that the children's cancers, and especially now these late effects, both mental and physical, are starting to be more topical and more recognized. But let's see, now we have the strategy, now we have to implement it. So.
Okay. Well, like you, Jacob, said, that the focus is on the child who is sick. So did anyone ever ask you as parents that how are you doing?
Yeah, you can also you can probably answer better than me.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I saw the question, but it's actually hard to remember. I really can't remember, and for me that was not important. It was more about my kid.
Yeah.
And then it's all like other parts in life. It's about talking about it, and not do it like when I was young, turning the blind eye to the backyard of the hospital. You need to face it, even you're not a part of it. So no, I don't know. Yeah, my wife, she asked how I was, and that's most important. But when you're in it, it's more about the kids.
Yes. Annastiina.
Yeah, and for me, the nurses in the hospital, they asked and they offered the help and showed how to get the psychiatric nurse help. And I think it was very hard to do because you are surviving and you don't want anyone to see that you are weak, so it's hard to take the help as you need it. But yeah, they were asking, and asking for the whole family that how we are doing. Yeah.
And now I remember, because you had that good answer, that at some point very early in the process of getting the treatment, there actually came a psychologist to the room where we stayed. But it's also about timing. At that time, I had no intention of talking with anybody. I didn't, need her sympathy. I didn't need her to, ask me too many questions. I was just in a surviving mode. So it's different from person to person. But at some point, of course, it's something that is needed for everybody.
Yeah, and like I said before, that I think that I'm now in that point after 2 years of the ending of those chemotherapies. So I'm now in the point that I think that I could have talked to the psychologist or someone to what I felt or what I did or what I didn't do and
kind of
stuff like that. Yeah. So it's a long process.
Yes.
I think Jacob said the key word, which is timing, and I think it sounds from your answer as well that the timing is super important. And actually we get asked quite a lot in Sylva, sometimes by media, but very often by people who are in the same workplace as somebody whose child is having a cancer or going through treatments, and they are asking, what can I do or what can I say to this family? And very often we've asked this, of course, from the parents, and the kind of, in a way, a sort of beautiful answer has been that, look, if you don't know what to say, you can say, I don't know what to say. It's okay, this is it's one of those Finnish things that, even if you don't have words, you can just say, look, kind of acknowledge what's happening.
Or maybe it's not only Finnish, it's also Danish, because there were many people asking is anything we can do? And then you couldn't answer that question. You were in the middle of this, and so you didn't know how to answer that. So the best thing that could happen for us was when people, they just did something. We were actually renovating our house at that time, and then suddenly, you know, a lot of people, they gathered together from the small village where we live, and then they started doing stuff, you know, and then we saw it on video and stuff like that. So that's, you know, it's way better than ask, because I don't think you will. Yeah, can you please do my house or something? you don't answer that. So.
But that's very moving that they.
Yeah, it was.
They wanted to do that.
Absolutely, it was beautiful.
Yeah, that's also what we've seen in the answers from the surveys, that that support from, not like peer support, but from your old friends, it's very important. But you don't ask for it, and it's nothing special. It's maybe cooking a meal when you didn't have time for it, especially if you have several kids, like cleaning, breaking the yard or mowing the grass, and not making a big number about it, and just. Also, I think it's the same, similar with even if you have like an adult, a friend who has cancer themselves, you just hang out unless you have to be wary about of infections, but just be there.
Yeah, I can relate that. For example, my best friend, one of my best friends, she took me to the home, and I went to shower when Harri was with Isela in the hospital. So in the first stage of that hospital time. So it was just a little thing that I could go home and have a shower. So it was very, very good.
It's kind of like that chicken soup behind the door. Your friend is over there when you are sick. That's friendship. Did you notice that your friends would kind of be scared or would isolate from you?
No. I felt that everyone was very supportive and they helped as much as they could, as also my sisters and grandparents, and everyone was very, they took it in their hearts.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's the same, only a big amount of support, and then it's at some point, you know, people, they keep asking, how is she? And then at some point, you know, depending on who asks, then you say, she's fine. Even she's like, you know, still getting some kind of treatment, but you reach at a point where it's nice that people ask, and they should keep asking. It's very important, but you know, you cannot make the full answer always.
Yeah. We put together on a WhatsApp group, and we just told one person how Isela was doing, and then that person wrote it to the WhatsApp group, and everyone was informed. So we didn't have to tell one by one how she's doing.
That's very tiring too. Yeah, that's true. Mm-hmm.
I'm really glad to hear that, and I think I'd like to ask, because both of you have now been out of, or your children are now out of treatment, and they're doing fine, and you know they're playing like regular kids. What are your sort of expectations for the future? What do you think? I mean, what are your hopes and fears, and how are you thinking about the future of your children? And Riikka mentioned late effects. So have you experienced any of those?
Well, Isela is now having the follow-ups about every 3 months, and after July it will shift every 4 months. So it is the feeling of safety is quite good at the medical things, that you can trust that everything will go well, and if it will come again, it will be catched earlier. But and now she's doing fine. She's very happy and joyful, and doing a lot of sports and football, basketball, everything. And she don't have any side effects or anything else yet. But but we know that some might come up for example, 20 years from now, because she was only 3 years old when she got the chemotherapy. We don't know how it will affect on her on the future, but at this point everything seems very good, and the future is very bright, I think.
Yeah, it's the same here. It's there are a lot of side effects. She got this bone marrow transplantation, actually with a donor from Germany. So she thinks she's will be very good at speaking German now. So, and that went really well. The treatment caused some problems for the heart, the hair, the lungs. She has 70% lung capacity, but none of the things, is a handicap. She can live with it, and she's also playing football, and she's quick and smart, so everything is as it should be. I know if you took any kid and said she has, 70% lung effect, she has heart problems, she's small, then you would say, well, that's a pity. But we don't look at her like this. We look at her, she's healthy. And we're lucky that we are living in this part of the world where you can, treat people and cure people. So we more appreciate that than looking at the faults.
People always say that my values kind of exploded or went to the different perspective. How do you feel about that? What happened to do you see the life differently now? I think we would lie if we would say, and we could maybe now, I'm answering on your behalf, I will not do that, but at least it's a bit cliché, but I was so happy when we came to the point where she had to go to kindergarten again and I had to wake up early. My wife, she would say she's waking up early and making the lunchbox, small things like that, just picking her up from kindergarten or school. I enjoy it, And with the job I have as a coach, I was like 1 year after, or in the treatment, I was interviewed to a Danish television, and we were actually walking in a park when the interview was going on. One side there was the national stadium in Denmark, and on the right side the hospital where she was treated, and then the interview, she asked, do you ever feel under pressure when you're on the sideline? And I said, no, not on that sideline, not in that stadium, but on that hospital, I'm under pressure. So, we can use it to put a perspective on that there are more important things. Exactly.
Or the most important things in the life is the kids. So, yeah.
Annastiina, how do you feel?
And I value the time more, time with my both kids and time with my family, and try to be not so work related anymore and put my computer away when the work is ending, and just having the family time and be happy and healthy.
I would like to ask Riikka, are there any models out there in the world that Finland should look at?
Well, not that I know of. So even though we have now maybe been pinpointing the problems, we're doing still quite well, at least compared to other countries. I also asked co-pilot, what should we use as an example? And the only country co-pilot could come up with was Sweden. So we're doing quite well. So Denmark, Finland, Sweden, Norway. So it's kind of more difficult for us also to improve because we don't have any examples available to just choose from. We have to develop them ourselves.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the only small thing that I would add to that is that we need to make sure that everybody stays with us in the country, so that no matter where you are, what kind of income level or how much your parents are earning, that you get a this super good treatment and so much support that your family can do it, because that is not always the case.
Short last words.
Yeah, but I know kids and cancer, you get a lot of support, but I think we are living in a society, a part of the world where we should be able to support any disease when it comes to, these difficult areas. So.
Our time is up. Thank you so much for sharing your personal stories, Jacob Friis and Annastiina Hedman. Thank you and keep up the good work. Antti Karjalainen from Sylva ry and Research Director Riikka Leskelä from Nordic Healthcare Group. Thank you, audience. Have a good weekend.